I grew up being the middle child in our family, sandwiched between my successful older sister Amelia and my brilliant younger sister Sophia. My parents always said I had a special gift with my hands. While my sisters excelled in academics, I found my calling as a master plumber. At 32, I own my own business with 15 employees. Since my parents passed 3 years ago, I have been paying $65,000 annually for Sophia's law school. This Christmas would be our first gathering at Amelia's home since the tragedy. I had a strange feeling as I packed the gifts. If you are watching this, let me know where you are tuning in from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe to see how quickly family dynamics can shatter when success comes in an unexpected package. Growing up in our middle-class neighborhood in Boston, my family was tight-knit and loving. My father Thomas worked hard running a small hardware store, while my mother Grace taught third grade at the local elementary school. They raised us with strong values about the importance of education, but also about respecting practical skills and honest work. My older sister Amelia was always the academic star. She excelled. In debate club was class president, and eventually went to an Ivy League college where she met her husband Brad, who came from old money. My younger sister Sophia followed in her footsteps, always bringing home straight A's and collecting academic awards. I was different. I enjoyed working alongside my dad in his shop on weekends, learning how things worked, fixing what was broken. Dad never made me feel less than my sisters, because my talents lay elsewhere. He would say, "Roderick, the world needs builders and fixers as much as it needs thinkers." Never forget that. When I graduated high school, I tried college because it seemed expected. I enrolled in business administration, thinking I might take over Dad's store someday. 2 semesters in, I was struggling with the theoretical aspects and feeling increasingly out of place. One night, I called home frustrated after failing an important exam. Dad listened patiently, then said something that changed my life. "Son, there are many paths to success. College is just one of them. What makes you truly happy?" The answer came easily working with my hands, solving practical problems, the satisfaction of fixing things that were broken. The next day, I spoke with one of Dad's friends, a master plumber named Frank, about an apprenticeship. Mom was concerned at first, but Dad supported my decision wholeheartedly. "Plumbers will always be in demand," he said, "and a good one can make more than most college graduates." He was right. I threw myself into learning the trade, completing my apprenticeship in record time, getting all my certifications, and working my way up. By 27, I had saved enough to start my own plumbing business. Within 5 years, I had 15 employees and contracts with some of the biggest construction companies in the state. I was making more money than most lawyers I knew. My success came with a price, though. As I built my business, Amelia seemed to grow more distant. She had married Brad straight out of college, moved to an affluent suburb, and had 2 children, Tyler and Emma. Whenever I visited, there was always an undercurrent of tension, subtle comments about my unusual career choice and how I was doing well, despite not finishing college. Our family dynamic shifted dramatically 3 years ago when Mom and Dad were killed in a car accident on their way home from their anniversary dinner. The loss was devastating for all of us, but instead of bringing us closer, it seemed to create more distance. Amelia immediately positioned herself as the new head of the family, despite the fact that I handled most of the funeral arrangements and the settling of our parents' estate. Sophia was in her final year of college at the time and took the loss particularly hard. When she confided in me her dream of going to law school, but her fear of the massive student loans, I did not hesitate to offer my support. "I will pay for your law school," I told her during a quiet moment at the wake. "Mom and Dad would want you to follow your dreams." The relief and gratitude in her eyes made me feel like I was honoring our parents' memory. $65,000 a year was a significant commitment, but my business was thriving. and I had no family of my own to support yet. Besides, Sophia and I had always been close, and I believed in her potential. As the months passed after our parents' death, I noticed the invitations to Amelia's home became less frequent. When I did visit, conversations were strained. Brad would talk about his law firm's latest high-profile case, while Amelia would share stories about their country club friends. I tried to participate, sharing news about a major contract I had secured or an innovative plumbing solution my team had developed, but my contributions were often met with polite smiles and quick subject changes. Still, when Amelia texted to invite me to Christmas at her house, I was genuinely excited. It would be our first holiday gathering since losing our parents. I spent weeks selecting the perfect gifts, a limited edition science kit for 10-year-old Tyler, who loved experiments, a beautiful art set for 8-year-old Emma, who had inherited Mom's creative talent, an elegant cashmere scarf for Amelia, golf equipment for Brad, and for Sophia, a vintage briefcase that had belonged to our grandfather, restored and personalized for her future law career. I also had news to share. My business was expanding to include green plumbing solutions, focusing on water conservation and eco-friendly installations. I had been featured in a trade magazine and was being considered for a small business award. I was proud and thought my family would be too. The week before Christmas, I noticed something odd. Amelia was posting photos on social media of holiday activities with the whole family, but I was not in any of them. There was Sophia, Brad, the kids, even Brad's parents, all decorating the tree or baking cookies together. When had these gatherings happened? Why had I not been invited? I brushed aside my concerns, telling myself they were probably just casual drop-ins, not planned events. My invitation for Christmas Day dinner was confirmed after all. But as the day approached, an uneasy feeling grew in my stomach, a sense that something was not quite right. I pulled up to Amelia's impressive colonial-style house on Christmas Day, my truck loaded with carefully wrapped gifts. The driveway was filled with luxury vehicles, including some I did not recognize. I parked on the street, not wanting to block anyone in. As I approached the front door, gifts stacked in my arms, I could hear laughter and music inside. I rang the doorbell, excitement mingling with that persistent unease. Amelia answered, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Roderick, you made it," she said, stepping aside to let me in. There was no hug, no warm welcome. Brad appeared behind her, nodding curtly. "Good to see you," he said, with the same enthusiasm he might greet a delivery person. I stepped into the foyer, taking in the scene. The house was beautifully decorated with a massive tree visible in the living room and the scent of pine and cinnamon in the air, but something felt off. "Where should I put these?" I asked, nodding to the gifts. "Oh, just over there for now." Amelia waved vaguely toward a side table. "We are about to sit down for dinner." As I followed them into the dining room, I noticed the table was set for 12 people with name cards at each place. I scanned for mine, but did not see it initially. Finally, I spotted it at the far end, separated from the rest of the family, next to people I did not know. The room was filled with guests I had never met, all dressed impeccably. Brad was introducing them his law firm partner, a judge, a state senator, and his wife. I suddenly felt underdressed in my nice but casual Christmas sweater and slacks. Sophia arrived just as we were sitting down. She gave me a quick, awkward hug before taking her seat next to Amelia, far from me. She looked different, more polished in an expensive-looking outfit, her normally warm demeanor replaced with something more reserved. Throughout the meal, conversation flowed around topics I could not easily contribute to: exclusive schools, recent symphony performances, and legal cases. Brad's lawyer friends dominated the discussion, often talking about the important work they were doing and the essential professions that shaped society. "Of course, not everyone can pursue higher education," one of them said, with a pointed glance in my direction. "Society needs its service providers too." Amelia quickly jumped in before I could respond. "More wine, anyone?" Judge Patterson was just telling us about his recent trip to Tuscany. Every time I tried to join the conversation, Amelia would smoothly redirect it. When I mentioned my business expansion, Brad cut in. Speaking of real estate, the commercial property market is quite interesting right now, is not it, Senator? I caught Sophia's eye across the table, looking for any sign of support or recognition of how I was being treated. But she quickly looked away, laughing at something Brad's law partner had said. After dinner, everyone moved to the formal living room for gift exchanges. I brought my stack of presents excited, despite the awkward dinner, to see the kids open what I had brought them. "Oh, actually," Amelia said, as I entered with the gifts, "we already did our main exchange last night." "Last night?" I asked, confused, but I was not here. It was just a small gathering with Brad's family and Sophia, since she was staying over, Amelia explained dismissively. The kids were eager to open presents. You know how they are. I watched as Tyler and Emma opened the gifts I had brought with polite but minimal enthusiasm. They had already received their real presents the night before, and mine were clearly an afterthought. What hurt more was seeing a beautiful photo album on the coffee table open to pictures from the previous night. There was Sophia smiling broadly, helping the kids unwrap elaborate gifts labeled from her. The same Sophia who had texted me last month asking for an advance on her tuition payment because she was completely broke. Amelia distributed gifts to the guests, then handed small, hastily wrapped items to the judge and senator's wife, who were seated near me. "Just a little something for our new friends," she said warmly. I waited, but nothing came my way. No gift, not even a token gesture from my own sisters. When the guests began to disperse into smaller conversation groups, I pulled Amelia aside. "Could we talk privately for a minute?" I asked. She looked annoyed but led me to the kitchen. "What is it I need to get back to our guests?" "Your guests," I corrected quietly. "Amelia, what is going on? Why was I excluded from your night before Christmas celebration? Why am I seated away from the family? And where is my Christmas gift? Even your new acquaintances received something." Amelia sighed, glancing at the door, as if ensuring we were alone. "Look, Roderick, I do not know how to say this delicately. This dinner, it is important for Brad's career. These are influential people. And what does that have to do with how you are treating me?" She lowered her voice further. "It is just your occupation. It does not quite fit with the image we are trying to project." I stared at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. "My occupation? You mean the successful business I built from nothing? The one that pays your sister's $65,000 annual tuition?" "Please keep your voice down," she hissed. "Of course, we appreciate your support of Sophia's education. But surely you understand that in certain circles being a manual laborer carries certain associations." "A manual laborer," I repeated, stunned. "I own a company. I employ people. I make more money than most of your guests probably do." "It is not about money," she said with thinly veiled condescension. "It is about class, about fitting in. The senator's wife was asking what you do, and I just could not bring myself to say my brother is a plumber." The word plumber came out of her mouth like it was dirty, something shameful. "So you are embarrassed by me," I said the reality, sinking in. "By what I do for a living. Not embarrassed exactly," she backpedaled unconvincingly. "Just, perhaps it would be better if you left early, to avoid any awkwardness." I was about to respond when I realized Sophia was standing in the doorway, her expression making it clear she had heard everything. "Sophia," I said, hoping for some support from my younger sister, the one whose education I was funding, the one I thought understood me. She looked between Amelia and me, conflict clear on her face. But then she stepped toward Amelia. "Brad is looking for you," she said quietly. "The senator is preparing to leave." Amelia nodded and left without another word to me, Sophia trailing behind her after giving me an apologetic but non-committal glance. I stood alone in the kitchen, the sounds of laughter and conversation continuing in the other room, as if nothing had happened, as if my world had not just been shattered. The drive home from Amelia's house was a blur. Christmas lights twinkled from houses I passed, families visible through windows, celebrating together. Meanwhile, I felt like I had been punched in the gut, the betrayal so acute it was physically painful. I kept replaying the events in my mind: the cold reception, the segregated seating, the exclusion from the real family Christmas, and finally, Amelia's devastating admission. She was ashamed of me, of my profession. And Sophia, whom I had supported financially and emotionally, had stood by, silently choosing Amelia's approval over defending me. Throughout the following week, memories of our childhood kept surfacing, now tainted by this new lens. Had Amelia always looked down on me? Had my parents sensed this divide? Would they have been disappointed by how their daughters treated their son? I sent Sophia a message the day after Christmas. "We need to talk about what happened. Call me when you can." No response. I tried again 2 days later. "I hope you understand how hurtful yesterday was. I would like to hear your side." Still nothing. New Year's Eve arrived, and I found myself alone, declining invitations from friends to celebrate. I needed time to process, to decide what to do next. As the clock struck midnight and fireworks erupted across the city, I made a resolution: I would no longer enable the disrespect I had experienced. The first working day of January, I called my financial advisor, James. "Happy New Year, Roderick," he greeted me cheerfully. "What can I do for you today?" "I need to make some changes to my finances," I explained, "specifically regarding the payments I have been making for my sister's law school tuition." "Ah, yes. Quite a substantial commitment," he commented. "The next payment of $16,250 is scheduled for the end of the month. I want to cancel it," I said firmly, "and all future payments." There was a pause on the line. "I see. May I ask if this is a temporary situation?" "No, it is permanent." I took a deep breath. "Instead, I would like to redirect those funds into my business expansion plans we discussed last year, and perhaps explore some additional investment opportunities." James was professional, but curious. "That is a significant financial decision." "Are you certain?" "More certain than I have ever been," I replied. Over the next few days, I met with James to review exactly how much I had been spending on Sophia. Beyond tuition, there were the emergency transfers for rent books, conference fees, and living expenses. All told, I had spent over $200,000 supporting her over the past 2.5 years. I also consulted with my lawyer to draft a formal letter explaining my decision. It was not written in anger, but with clarity and firmness. "Dear Sophia, after careful consideration, I have decided to discontinue financial support for your education and living expenses effective immediately. This decision is final and reflects a necessary boundary I must establish in our relationship. The events at Christmas made it clear that my contribution to your life is not valued beyond the financial support I provide. While I will always care for you as my sister, I cannot continue to fund an education that appears to be teaching you to devalue the very work that makes your opportunity possible. I wish you success in your future endeavors and remain open to rebuilding our relationship on more equal and respectful terms. Sincerely, Roderick." I had my lawyer review the letter to ensure it could not be construed as a broken contract or promise, then sent it via certified mail to ensure she received it. The response was swift and panicked. My phone exploded with notifications, first text messages from Sophia expressing disbelief, then voicemails with increasing desperation in her voice, and finally, a barrage of angry calls from Amelia. "You cannot do this to her," Amelia shouted when I finally answered her call. "She is in the middle of her program. She has no other way to pay. She has options," I replied calmly. "Loans, scholarships, part-time work. The same options available to most law students. This is about Christmas is not it. You are being petty and vindictive. This is about respect." I corrected her, something I realized I have not been receiving from either of you. "You are destroying our family," she accused. "The family was destroyed when you decided your brother was too embarrassing to acknowledge because of his honest profession," I responded. "A profession, I might add, that has allowed me to support Sophia while building a successful business. Mom and Dad would be ashamed of you," she said, hitting below the belt. That one stung, but I held firm. "No, they would be ashamed of how you have treated their son. Dad especially would be appalled at your elitism." The conversation ended with her threatening vague consequences and me blocking her number immediately afterward. The family drama spilled onto social media, with Amelia posting cryptic messages about family betrayal and abandoning responsibilities. Distant relatives and family friends began taking sides, many without knowing the full story. Surprisingly, one person who reached out in support was Brad's father, a retired electrician. He sent me a private message I heard about what happened. "For what it is worth, I think you made the right call. Some people forget where they come from. Those of us who work with our hands built this country. Never be ashamed of that." His message brought the first smile to my face in weeks. With the decision made and boundaries set, I felt a weight lifted. I redirected my energy and the newly available funds into my business. I purchased new equipment that increased our efficiency, expanded our service area, and implemented an apprenticeship program, specifically targeting disadvantaged youth who needed career opportunities. One of my first apprentices was a 19-year-old named Jordan, who had aged out of foster care. "Why plumbing?" I asked him during his interview. "Because it is honest work that no one can take away from you," he replied. "And because people will always need plumbers." I hired him on the spot, seeing echoes of my younger self in his practical wisdom. Within 6 months, my company's revenue had nearly doubled. We expanded into commercial properties, securing contracts with several major development projects in the city. The business magazine that had considered me for an award now featured me on its cover, highlighting our apprenticeship program and green initiatives. More meaningful than the financial success was the freedom I felt. Freedom from seeking approval from people who would never give it. Freedom to be proud of the work I did and the lives I was changing. Freedom to honor my parents' memory in my own way. In their honor, I established a scholarship for trade school students named after my father. It felt right away to create opportunity for others while acknowledging that there are many valid paths to success. 6 months after I sent that letter, I was reviewing blueprints in my office when my assistant knocked on the door. "There is someone here to see you," she said. "She does not have an appointment, but says she is your sister." I felt a mix of emotions, anger, curiosity, residual hurt. "Send her in," I decided. Sophia entered, looking very different from the polished law student at Christmas. Her clothes were simpler, her expression humbled with dark circles under her eyes, suggesting many sleepless nights. "Roderick," she said tentatively, "thank you for seeing me." I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "What brings you here, Sophia?" She sat down, hands fidgeting in her lap. "I am in trouble," she admitted. "After you stopped the payments, I tried to get loans, but with my credit history, it was not possible. I am on academic probation now because I had to take too many hours working to pay rent. I am going to lose my apartment next month." I listened without interrupting, noting that she looked genuinely distressed, but also different, somehow more authentic than the person who had stood with Amelia at Christmas. "I am sorry to hear that," I said when she finished, "but I do not understand what you want from me." "I need help," she said simply. "I have nowhere else to go. Amelia says her guest room is being renovated, which I know is a lie. And now you come to the plumber, brother," I observed. She flinched at my tone, but met my eyes directly for the first time. I deserve that. What happened at Christmas, and my silence afterward? It was wrong. I was wrong. "Why did you do it?" I asked the question that had haunted me for months. She took a deep breath. "Because I wanted to be like Amelia. I wanted to fit in with her world, with those powerful people. I thought being a lawyer meant being like them. Her voice broke. But I have learned that many of them are miserable, competitive, and look down on everyone, even each other, and none of them would help me when I needed it. And you think I should? After how you treated me? No, she said, surprising me. I do not think you should. I would not in your position. But I had to come and at least tell you face to face that I am sorry. Truly sorry. What you do, who you are. It is worth 10 of Amelia's friends. I was too blind and stupid to see that. Her candor was unexpected. I studied her, looking for signs of manipulation, but saw only genuine regret. What are your plans now? I asked. Honestly, I do not know. I am thinking of leaving law school. It is not what I thought it would be, and I am not sure it is right for me anyway. I was following Amelia's path without asking if it was what I wanted. I nodded, understanding that feeling all too well. And what do you want? She looked thoughtful. I want to do something that helps people directly, something honest. I have been volunteering at a legal aid clinic, helping people who cannot afford lawyers with basic services. That feels more meaningful than anything else I have done. We talked for over an hour. I did not commit to anything that day, but I did agree to meet again. It was the first step in what would become a slow rebuilding of trust. I was clear about my boundaries. I would not resume paying for law school, but I would consider helping her find a new path if she demonstrated genuine change. Over the following months, I developed stronger relationships outside my family. My employees became more than staff. We were a team gathering for barbecues and celebrating milestones together. I volunteered my services at community centers and for elderly residents who could not afford plumbing repairs, finding fulfillment in using my skills to help others. I started dating Lisa, an environmental engineer I met through a green building project. Unlike others I had dated, she found my profession fascinating and respected the technical knowledge it required. You know more about water systems than most of my colleagues with PhDs, she observed on our third date. The holidays approached again, bringing inevitable thoughts of family. Amelia reached out unexpectedly in November, with a very different tone than our last conversation. Brad lost his partnership, she explained, when we met for coffee, at my suggestion on neutral ground. The firm downsized and he was let go. We have had to make some adjustments. I am sorry to hear that, I said sincerely. Job loss is difficult. She nodded, looking humbled in a way I had never seen before. We have had to sell the country club membership. Emma may need to leave her private school. She hesitated. It turns out having a reliable trade is more secure than we realized. Sometimes it takes difficult circumstances to see what truly matters, I observed. Roderick, I know I cannot erase what I said and did. But I want you to know I am deeply ashamed of how I treated you. Pride and social climbing became too important to me, and I lost sight of what family really means. I appreciated her apology, but remained cautious. Thank you for saying that. It means a lot to hear it. Would you consider joining us for Christmas this year? She asked hopefully. It will be much smaller. Just family. I considered her offer carefully. I have plans with friends this year, I told her. But perhaps we could have dinner in the new year. Small steps. She nodded, understanding that trust would need to be rebuilt gradually. I did connect Brad with a commercial developer I knew who was looking for legal counsel on a contract basis. It was a professional courtesy, not a personal reconciliation, but it felt like the right thing to do. Through therapy, I had come to understand that my parents would indeed be proud of me, not just for my success, but for establishing healthy boundaries. They had taught us to respect all forms of honest work, and I was honoring that legacy through my business and the opportunities I created for others. The true meaning of family, I realized, was not defined by blood, but by respect, support, and genuine care. The family I had built around me, my employees, friends, and even Sophia, as she worked to make amends, was based on these principles rather than obligation or appearance. The pain of exclusion had ultimately led me to my most authentic life. By cutting off the financial support that had enabled my sisters to devalue me, I had freed myself to invest in my own growth and in people who genuinely appreciated me. Have you ever had to cut off family members who did not respect you? Did it lead to unexpected positive changes in your life? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about setting boundaries and finding true self-worth. And remember to share this video with someone who might need to hear that sometimes the family we choose is more valuable than the one we were born into. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the courage to stand up for your worth, whatever your profession or path in life.